Have you ever wanted to try painting in watercolors or ink and watercolor, but something's just holding you back? It could be you're kind of afraid to start, you're scared that you're going to mess up, or what you try just will look ridiculous and you don't want to be embarrassed by the whole thing. Well, today we're going to talk about how to deal with that because every creative person comes up against the same kind of obstacle over and over again. And it's kind of sad. And while we're discussing it, I'm going to be doing an ink and watercolor apple blossom because it's that time of year. This is the little sketch that we're working on today. It's apple blossom time here where I live and probably a lot of other places. So what I did was I found a photograph. I put it into my graphics program and turned it into a black and white. And I did this for two reasons. One is I wanted to show what dark and light values are, but also I wanted to just portray that you can paint whatever colors you want. Sometimes we try to be too perfectionist. So that brings me to my first point about creating art. Perfection is not the goal. Art is about expression and enjoyment, not perfection. So often we're just afraid that what if it doesn't look like the real thing? Well, you know, there is art that's created that does look like the real thing, and sometimes it's fantastic. But sometimes I kind of think, well, if you wanted a photo, why didn't you take a photo? So there is that. That's just my opinion. There's some art that's very realistic that doesn't look like a photo. Now, I'm going to just start with the flowers here. So I'm going to just be interjecting some thoughts as I mix paint and just give a few instructions as we go along. So what I'm using here is just what was on my palette, which was some of these rose colors, and then a little bit of brilliant yellow. It's called jaune brillant in French. And I want this to be quite pale, so I'm putting lots of water in it because these are just barely pink, right? And often I show how to paint wet and wet. In this one I'm not going to. I'm going to paint wet on dry, which means the paint has to dry first. So what I'm doing right now is actually wet on dry because the paper is dry. And I use this Sharpie pen because it's completely permanent. So when I put the paint on, it doesn't decide to run. And I'll put a link below for that. So in this one, I'm just doing a really pale pink wash on the petals of the open flower. And remember that watercolor dries lighter, so we want to keep that in mind. Just getting back to the subject, sometimes we're afraid to make mistakes. And maybe that comes from childhood, who knows? And these buds also, they're going to be darker, in fact, quite a bit darker, but I'm just going to leave them like this now, because I'm going to be painting more onto it. So here's the thing about making mistakes. If you have been punished for making mistakes in the past, you might be really, really nervous about making mistakes. But in art, there are no mistakes. You can't get it wrong. You just can't get it wrong because it's about expression and impression, and you can paint however you want. So imagine a child. You give a little kid some crayons and just let them do what they want. Now, I have a granddaughter who is 2 years old. She turned 2 in January. She's the most adorable creature you could imagine, of course. And she has an older brother and sister, so they were visiting here in spring break. And because I have lots of art supplies, of course, they want to play with everything. And their parents are artistic, and so there's a lot of that going on. And, you know, it's so much fun to just be let loose in someone else's art supplies. The little one, whose name is Marigold, gets crayons in her fist and just scribbles. And that's perfectly suitable for a child of that age. Now I want yellow for the flower inside. But the older kids are actually drawing pictures. Are they worried about it being perfect? Well, no. They're drawing because it's fun. So when you're painting, just paint because it's fun for you. Try that. Like, this is fun. I think I'll make the leaves purple. In this case, I don't think I will, but you know what I mean. Now, I want to get out a different green because I like the greens better and I like the paint a little bit better. Sap green deep, regular sap green for the leaves. And I'm going to also use this yellow green for the tips because it's springtime, right? So while this is drying, I'm going to start on these leaves. So notice, with regard to doing things perfectly, I'm not doing this perfectly. I could go into every little notch there, but I don't really want to. That's something I learned from Marigold. She doesn't want to do something, she just says, I don't want to. I'm like, I think I need to say that more often. If somebody says, you have to make the leaves green, feel free to say, I don't want to. I want my leaves to be brown, which of course they are at different times of year. Okay, here I am working wet and wet because it's just what I kind of naturally do. You don't need to do that. I'll do this one differently so that you can tell the difference. The other thing you need to know is that it doesn't matter where you start. If you're 85 years old and want to start painting in watercolors, if not now, when? What are you waiting for? I went on a trip with my sister about a year and a half ago down to the coast of Maine, and we went into this jewelry store that had really pretty stuff with semi-precious stones. And we were talking to the woman that was working there, who was probably in her 40s. And she was just asking us, you know, a little bit about ourselves. I think it was because I was carrying my purse, which I bought in Rome. And my sister had a bag she got in Paris or something. The woman said, "Whoa, you two have really gone a lot of places." And my sister said, well, you know, I'm 70 and my sister is 68, which is how old we were at the time. And if not now, when? If you're allowing things to hold you back, just keep that in mind. By the way, if you would like to have this sketch so that you can paint this, just send me an email. You'll find my email address in the information sort of at the back end of my channel. Just send me an email and ask for it. So I'm doing these all the same now. And this is going to be a bit of a painting lesson in itself. This is a simple low stress exercise. If you wanted to, you could paint it like this and leave it and say, I'm done. Look what I created. You can get the sketch from me and trace it onto your watercolor paper. I'll put a link below for a light box if you don't have one. And if you don't want to buy one, just hold it up to a window. Or as one of my followers said, she has a glass top table and she just puts a light under it. That works too. The important thing is to just enjoy how the ink and the paint flow together. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. This is wet and this is wet. I think everything else is dry. That's probably still a bit damp, but that doesn't matter. Here's a little lesson in values. And a value scale is light to dark. So a light value is white and the darkest value is black. And in between are all these shades of gray, which is why I made this like this. I didn't want the color in because I wanted to do my own thing. What I'm going to do now with this is, I think I'll use permanent rose because I want a color that's a little bit warmer. Put some of that there. And I'm also going to add some of this jaune brilliant again, because I like the sort of creaminess of it. So what I see here are shadow lines, or some of them are shadows like here, where the leaf curls like this. The others are value lines. So that means they're darker colors. I'm just going to paint some of these things in here. And you'll see how effective it is to just have paint on paint, also known as wet on dry. And down here there's a little bit more. Over here we've got a little bit of a darker area that kind of goes down this way, and then also up into here. So this defines the shape of the petal. On this one we've got some funny stuff going on over here. So basically what I'm painting here is the dark parts. You can do this or not do it. It doesn't matter. And that's the thing to keep in mind. The outcome really doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Don't fret about it. I'm just looking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, if I want to, I can make some of this a little bit paler. Remember, it dries lighter. See how much lighter that looks now? Now out here these are my buds, and they're already darker. So when I put darker on top of them, they're going to be darker still. And this has shadow around it. And then it has some lines up here and a bit of shadow there. So this kind of defines the shape. There's an example of wet on dry. And I think you could leave that just like that and be happy with it. If you prefer the smoother transitions, then you'll have to use wet on wet. But every look has its own charm, I think. So I'm going to go back into my leaves now. This one has some shadows on it. So I'm going to put the shadow on here. And these Kuretake paints are quite intense, as you can see. So I'm just kind of guessing where everything is, because for one thing, it's kind of blurry. Now I can let that dry, and then I can do more things to the leaves with other colors. At this point, I could go, okay, what else do I want to have in here? I think there needs to be a little bit of pink sort of in the background here. Just reflected color. Okay, what I want to do with these leaves is add a little bit more character. So I'm just going to take that up to there. You can tell already that this painting is far from perfect. At this point, I'm just kind of splashing paint on to see what I think it looks like. Great thing is you can throw it out and start over. Or here's another trick. Turn your paper over and use the other side. Or paint two things on the same piece of paper. So if you can save time or save money just as you're practicing, that's a good way to do it. There's a lot more I could do. I could start over again and paint it in a different way, but I'm satisfied with this. So what I want to say is that you don't have to be perfect to start. Just get your paints and brushes and paper and try things. If this helped you feel a little braver, let me know in the comments. And if you want more simple, beginner-friendly ink and watercolor projects, be sure to subscribe. And just tell me what you think. And I'll see you next time.